it's close to 11 o'clock. I think we're right about on the dot, 11 o'clock Eastern time. I really feel like it might be a fun thing to do while our nation is quarantined and trying to minimize where we go and what we do. Some of you have kids at home. Hang on a second, we have an airplane over us. We live really close to an airport, and so every few minutes or so outside I'm going to have to pause while one of them land. Obviously the airports are still running. But anyway, a lot of us are keeping our kids close to home. A lot of us have our kids home from school, and it's not spring break, and we can't really go anyplace. And so I thought it would be really fun for us to just take some time giving you guys some ideas. Bring your kids over, let them watch this too. We're going to learn some stuff, but we're also going to do it in a fun way. I'm hopefully going to try to cover material that goes from young elementary through high school. I put out a little feeler yesterday and asked for people's kids' ages, and I got a whole range. So we're going to try to do something that hits every age group. Maybe for about 10-15 minutes here, then I'm going to give you some ideas of things you can do at home with stuff you already have at home, so you don't feel like you have to go to the store and buy something, because again, the whole reason of doing this is to help you come up with ideas to do from home with what you have that are productive, that maybe minimize that screen time, and that are fun to do as a family. So we're going to start with a little unit on plants. Now, plants seem like they could be very boring, but we're hopefully going to make them really exciting and learn some fun stuff about them. Plants have three basic structures: leaves, stems, and roots. And we're going to talk about that today and maybe tomorrow. And then we're going to get a little bit further into fruits and flowers. I'm hoping to do a couple of dissections. Maybe you can dissect fruits or flowers along with me. We're going to talk about those. But for now, we're going to stick with the leaves, stems, and roots because those are the basic structures. And I want to talk about just leaves in particular. We're going to use some terms. You can see some leaves behind me in this forest. And leaves range in size and shape and even color. And so these are some of the bigger ones. You can see these elephant ears. I'm going to grab this one. Look at the size of this thing. And this is one of the smaller ones that are in the forest. They have brown edges because we're just in Florida coming out of winter. And so they don't love the cold weather very much. They kind of wither back. But as soon as the warm temperatures come, these guys can get as big as me. You can almost use them as a umbrella. So we have large leaves, we have small leaves, and I want to show you, first of all, let's focus on the color. Most leaves are green, and that's because they contain a chemical called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a pigment that is green in color. It is a light collecting pigment that enables plants to photosynthesize. So photosynthesis is when plants take energy from the sun and convert it through a chemical process that produces glucose as well as oxygen. Glucose is a sugar that the plants use as their food. Of course, we benefit from that as well because everything we eat can be traced back to plants, which can be traced back to solar energy. I'll probably break down a hamburger for you in a day or two and talk about how all of that can be traced back to solar energy thanks to our plants using photosynthesis because of the pigment chlorophyll that they have in their cells. So chlorophyll is a greenish pigment, but plants have other pigments as well. And we're going to see some of those in the leaves. So walk with me this way. I want to show you, first of all, some of you are very familiar with how leaves will change their color in the fall. Well, in Florida, it is not fall, obviously, but because we have very warm temperatures, we experience fall-like conditions in January and February sometimes. And I have a tree right here near us that's doing that. You can see right here, this tree has leaves that are green, but it also has leaves that are kind of a brownish, reddish color. And that's because it's finally experienced some of the cooler weather we've had in Florida. And when that happens, energy that's fed to the leaves gets cut off, and those leaves in some plants gets cut off, and those leaves obviously are not able to photosynthesize any longer. They aren't getting the supply of water that they need from the roots, and so they start to die. And when they do, they stop producing the pigment chlorophyll, which is green, and we can begin to see some accessory pigments underneath. And so some leaves are always green until they change color in the fall. We see accessory pigments. Some of them have pigments that are just tannins, which are brown. Some have pigments called anthocyanins, which are reddish or orangish. Some are fucoxanthin or xanthophyll, which are yellows. And depending on the pH and the temperature, that will change those colors. Some plants have colors regardless of the temperature year-round, which we're going to go take a look at. Some never lose their color green. Those are called evergreens, like pine trees are evergreen trees. They will never change color, those leaves. But walk with me, I want to show you some plants that have leaves that are multicolored regardless of the year, the time of year. So we're gonna walk a little faster here because I don't want to take up tons of your time. We're also gonna look at the 3 different basic kinds of leaves. You can actually classify, scientists will classify their leaves or plants based on their leaf shape. That's one quick way to identify groups of plants based on the shape of the venation or the veins in those leaves. I'm walking backwards. Hopefully I won't fall down. So I just want to keep talking to you though while we're walking. So take a look, do a nature walk outside if it's not snowing or freezing where you are. And you'll notice the different colors of green. Again, that has to do with pigments that are in the leaves. But come closer here. We have some decorative plants. And I was looking at them this morning and I thought, yeah, look at those. Look closely at these. There's all kinds of accessory pigments here. We have some reddish color in here. We've got some yellows on this one. This one has light and dark green. This one even has pink. These are gorgeous, gorgeous colors, but they're there for specific reasons that different plants will have. But you can see that there's more than just green. So let's say you're going to color a tree, younger kids, and you don't have a green crayon. You still can color the tree. You can color a tree in the fall and make it yellow or orange or red. And so leaves don't always have that green color. Now, there's 3 basic types of leaves based on the venation. Now, when I say that word venation, it has to do with veins. And so the veins of a leaf are actually the parts of a leaf. Come on with me, cameraman. Thank you. I have my faithful husband cameraman right now. I want to show you 3 leaves that I've picked from the area that show the different types of vein movement. The venation, or the veins in a leaf, are there to help. They're kind of like the way our veins and arteries behave in our body. They're transport vessels that will send nutrients, that will send water, minerals to the rest of the plant. And so look at these right here. I'm gonna sit down here. I have all kinds of cool stuff to show you. I've got where the veins are parallel to one another. There's a large central vein that's called the midrib, and the other veins are parallel to that midrib. So that's called parallel venation. All right, so that's one kind of leaf. And you can actually take this information, find a leaf in your area that has parallel venation, grass is a good one, and make an actual book where you're taking those leaves and ironing them onto wax paper, or you can actually do colored. I did remember it. It's got a central midrib, and then it has the other veins coming out from that midrib, kind of like a feather. So this is called pinnate venation. We have parallel, we have pinnate, and then the last one is called palmate. And it's because there's a midrib, but there's also several, and they come out kind of like the palm of your hand. And that's why it's called palmate venation. And so I did a rubbing of the leaf here for palmate venation. You guys can do this. You can grab a leaf, you can stick it underneath a sheet of paper. You can actually make a notebook out of this that you can do. Let me see, what color? I'm going to do orange this time. Kind of your nature notebook. And you just rub. Look how fun that is. It shows the different types of veins. If you know what plant you got this from, you can mark that in your notebook. You can mark what kind of venation this is, whether it's parallel, pinnate, or palmate. You can actually do these and cut them out. You can make a collage. You can actually, we're going to have lots of things you can put on your refrigerator this week, hopefully. Okay, so this is my pinnate leaf that I did. Isn't that pretty? And so you can do this to illustrate things and make a really pretty collage all on one sheet of paper with multiple colors if you want. Lots of fun things to do with the venation, due to the venation of leaves. And those are the 3 basic kinds of leaves: parallel, pinnate, and palmate. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up today is some science experiments you guys can do. Oh, I also want to talk about one other thing too that has to do with geography and trying to tie this into some other subjects. Planting seeds is one of the coolest things, or sprouting seeds. And you don't have to go to the seed store to buy seeds if you don't have any handy. You can just use dried beans. Any kind of dried beans will work. Most beans will sprout pretty rapidly as long as they're exposed to some moisture. If you want to just take a cup, a paper cup, or a glass, if you have just a glass, and put a couple of these on a wet paper towel and stick the paper towel down in the glass, they will sprout. Now they won't grow much longer than that without being planted in soil, but they will sprout because these are seeds that have energy built inside them to feed the sprout, the young sprout, while it is growing. Interestingly, sprouts will grow I did these just 2 days ago. I want you to look inside here. These are some bean sprouts. They are designed by with hormones in them that enable the roots to know which way to go. The roots will always grow towards the pull of gravity. The shoots, which are the stem part of the plant, always will grow opposite the pull of gravity. And so based on gravity's pull, hormones tell the roots and the shoots which way to go. Roots will always go towards it, shoots will go away from it, based on the hormones that are already built in to these seeds. Now I have a little experiment that I'm doing here. I wanted to take a look at population and how population affects how things grow. We have a little population thing going on right now by trying to stay away from one another so we don't increase the population of a virus, right? And so I have 15 bean seeds in this cup, and I have only 3 in this cup. And so I'm going to try to see which ones, how that will affect these guys that are all crowded in here versus these guys that have a little more space. So what you do when you want to set up an experiment, you want to keep everything else constant but one variable. One variable is different. The variable here is number of seeds, but I have the same amount of soil in each cup, same kind of soil. I also have the same kinds of seeds. I have the same amount of water that I'm putting in each cup as well. And I poked some holes on the underside of these cups so there's some drainage. So you don't have to have like fancy planters. You can use a planter if you want, but you don't have to. And I used some other cups as my little trays to hold it, so when I water these things, the water doesn't go everywhere. So just using simple stuff from home, you can conduct a science experiment. You might want to decide, well, what if I don't use water? What if I put 3 seeds in here and 3 seeds in here, and I use water for one and orange juice for another one, or Gatorade? Would that make it work better or not? What if and here's another one I did that I've got going that we'll keep track on. I've got 2 trays with more soil, and I planted some radish seeds in the trays. Same number of radish seeds. I'll show you the second one in a second. And these were done a couple of days ago. They're already starting to sprout. So the root's going down, the shoot's going up, and we're going to start seeing what are called the seed leaves. The seed leaves, there's usually 1 or 2 seed leaves based on the kind of plant that is classified. And so seed leaves are called cotyledons. That's a great vocabulary word. You can look that up, Cotyledon. And based on those seed leaves, that's when they sprout, and then they start to produce more and more leaves as they grow and take root. So I have this group of radish seeds that are growing just under normal conditions. I had this over the top of them just to keep the soil moist until they sprouted. And now that they're sprouting, I'm just keeping the lid off so that they don't start to rot. So once you do that, you want to let it be able to get some air. I have a second tray. This tray is going to be grown underneath the box. And the reason why is I'm sprouting one in the light and one in the dark. And we're going to see how that affects, obviously, photosynthesis. So my hypothesis here is that the plants that are growing in the dark will not be able to grow very well. Notice that it didn't affect how they sprouted, though. So sunlight doesn't affect whether a plant will sprout or not. Moisture does. But I want to see how they will continue to grow and how that will compare. And we'll keep track of these over the next couple days so you can see them as well. Now you can also look and see, you can do a geography annex or wing from this study. Print out a picture of the U.S. or your area if you're not in the U.S. and see what kind of plant zones are in your area. There's usually maps that show the zones of growth, whether it's tropical or whether it's not. And as it gets colder, it's usually layers that go horizontally or according to the latitude based on what kinds of plants can grow where. Where we're located, we're kind of near the tropics but not quite in the tropics, which means we get some hard freezes once in a while. They just don't last for very long. So we can grow tropical plants here where I'm living, but we can't grow all kinds of tropical plants. Any of the ones that are a little more tender can't handle some of the cold snaps we get here where I am. So I know where our zone is, but you can print out a map and draw those lines and color in the zones and talk about plants that grow in those various zones and tie that into geography. You can talk about the history of kinds of plants that are grown, what kind of farming is done in your area. We can make this a complete unit study if you wanted to do that. Pull out those vocabulary words, have your students do some kind of a science experiment and write about what they think is going to happen and write about what happens each day, keeping track of that. They can do percentages. We can pull that in for math. So I'm also going to start including some links to things in the comment section. I'm going to go back and answer any questions you guys have as you're watching this. and we're going to try to have fun together. If you know somebody who's doing something similar or offering something, or books that are that you can read that have to do with this material, please put a link in the comments or suggestions, because this is something I just want us all to pool our resources together so we all can have fun with our kids at home, enjoy learning together, keeping them busy, and not having to pop them in front of the television set all day long. So we're going to return tomorrow at 11 o'clock again, and Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time, because we're on Daylight Savings now. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining me.